Gail is a professor of sociology and women's studies at Wheelock College in Boston. She's also an anti-pornography feminist activist who researches, writes and speaks about the dangers of pornography. She's written a book called Pornland, and we invited her into the CPX studio to hear what she has to say about the dangers of pornography and how it has hijacked our sexuality. Thank you so much for coming to speak with us, Gail.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for asking me.
So with pornography, we're familiar with how sex, gender, power and money is all bound up with pornography. But now we've got technology. Can you explain to us how technology has affected the consumption of porn?
Oh, it's completely changed it. I mean, the internet has absolutely changed porn in terms of the quantity and the quality. So just to think about what porn used to be like, and imagine, it all started really around 1953 with the first edition of Playboy, because that was really the beginning of the porn industry, because never before had a pornographic magazine actually circulated through the mainstream channels of American capitalism. So 1953 was Playboy, then 1969 was Penthouse, 1973 was Hustler. And so there you had the kind of threesome of the porn industry that actually laid the economic, cultural and legal groundwork for today's industry. What changed everything was, of course, the internet. And how did it change it? Well, first of all, when you think about under the Playboy days, you'd have a 14-year-old boy, hormones raging, and he'd go and pilfer his father's Playboy. And he'd have certain limits to how much access to porn he'd had, how much could he really look at. Now today, right, there's no limits, and it's not Playboy he's looking at, because when he types porn into Google, rather than, sort of coy smiles and provocative poses, the average 14-year-old boy is catapulted into a world of brutality, body-punishing sex, cruelty, and in many ways what looks like sexual torture. Now, this is his introduction to sex, because, in most cases, he's probably not got a history of having any sexual experiences. So this is all he knows. The culture says this is what it means to be male, is to use pornography, and there's no limits to how much he can access. So the whole way in which boys now experience pornography and develop their sense of masculine sexuality has completely been revolutionized by internet porn.
You wrote an article in the paper the other day, and then people were writing back and saying that not all porn is like that, basically. What's your response to, the body-punishing porn in particular?
Of course not all porn is like that. I mean, you've got, thousands of different types of porn. But what I am interested in is the mainstream porn. What I'm interested in is what comes up when you put porn into Google. What are the best renters? What are the best sellers? And what's interesting when I'm reading all these comments from the articles and listening to people on the radio criticizing me is actually where I get my data from is the porn industry. I'm not making this up as I go along. The porn industry in Adult Video News, which is actually the porn kind of trade paper, every single month they publish the porn charts, which shows the top 10, the top 200 renters, the top 200 sellers, the most visited porn pages and websites, and it's what's called gonzo, which is the body-punishing sex. And indeed, what they say is that gonzo porn is the most profitable because it doesn't take very much money to make, and it, creates a huge profit. So I think a lot of these people who say what I'm talking about is, I'm making it up or it's not true, they actually don't understand the industry. They really don't know what's going on out there.
What about people who watch porn like as couples, for example, or what about consumers of gay pornography, or perhaps even women watching porn? Are they also watching gonzo? Or?
Well, what's interesting is that the porn industry is always talking about how many women are actually watching porn. The truth is that's a PR, right? Because when you actually speak to people in the porn industry, they say it's still a vastly male consumer base. They're very upset by that, by the way, because of course they want women to watch porn because they're an industry.
Audience.
Yeah, of course. But so what happens, what we know, when women watch porn, okay, it's complicated. First of all, they're not looking at gonzo, most of them. They're looking at what's called feature porn, which is more couples-orientated porn. But I want to make it very clear, we're still talking about pretty body-punishing sex here. This is not softcore pornography as we know it. And also what I found in my interviews with both women and men is that when many of these women are watching it, they're being groomed by their boyfriends into porn sex.
Wow,
it's used as a grooming tool, okay? But having even put that aside, right, when women are watching it with their husbands, and they'll say, well, we watch this porn and this is what my husband watches. Well, actually, that's probably not true, because what the industry says is that when the men are alone, it's the gonzo that comes out. So even if you're watching porn with your partner and you think you know what he's looking at, let me tell you, there's a very good chance that when you're not there, he's is watching this really body-punishing, cruel, violent imagery.
Right, okay. Could you spend some time talking about the impacts of porn on both men and women in terms of shaping their attitudes to sex?
Certainly.
Does it have an effect, basically?
Well, first of all, we have over 30 years of empirical studies, experimental psychological studies that show us, without question, it has an effect. Right, now, those who argue it doesn't are very similar to the junk scientists of the climate deniers, who pick some junk science, right? The reality is the weight of the evidence of 30 years of studies is without question pornography has an effect. And certainly with interviews that I've conducted and interviews that other people have. So so these are some of the effects. Okay, first of all, without question, it causes desensitization. The more porn you watch, the more desensitized you become, the harder and harder you need to keep aroused. Also, because you are masturbating to really industrial strength sex, you know, and some of these things include gagging women with a penis till they almost vomit, some do vomit, very, very rough pounding anal sex, she's being spat upon as her hair's being pulled and she's being called names I, you know, can't say on camera. These are the images that you are getting used to. So actual sex with a real woman who won't do those things becomes very boring and bland and vanilla. And what men tell me is that they actually lose interest in that type of sex with real human beings and they prefer their pornography. So we know that happens. We know that for many men who use a lot of pornography, in order to stay aroused and ejaculate, they have to conjure up images of their favourite porn scenes to keep them interested. So these are studies have found this over years. This is not something that, you know, a few of us have made up along the way to have this kind of agenda which they seem to suggest. So when you're looking at the scientific evidence, porn has a profound effect. But let me say something really important here. Even if it wasn't for those studies, what more empirical evidence do you need that pornography has an effect than the fact that we have a multi-billion-dollar a year industry on advertising? If advertisements can change consumer behaviour, which we know it can, because otherwise it wouldn't exist as a multi-billion-dollar a year industry, then why can't pornography change sexual behaviour? We know images have a profound effect. The basis of the advertising industry is that images change behaviour.